hope for a safe and even and equitable start here for this boys race. We're now just about 15 seconds away. The gun will be fired from the right tent that you see, or at least in front of it. Easy for us to find that gun when it goes up, if it's in the same position as it has been previously, but we're now waiting for that start. Now that hand is up. And the gun is fired. You can see the official here adjacent. We'll keep an eye on that flag. Keep it down. And we're going to get these boys out on the race course safely. So the boys, 13 and 14-year-olds, racing 4 kilometers for a USATF Junior Olympic Championship. As we continue to show you the teams represented here and the individual athletes, as we'll get them out and on to the race course for the first kilometer. We'll have splits at 1, 2, and then at the finish line, the 4-kilometer distance. A little bit of an early surge here at the front of the pack as they squeeze from that wide expanse of an opening few hundred meters and then get into the main part of the race course.
Yeah, and once again, you can see that flag almost horizontal there with the wind picking it up at 4 meters per second. So not only are these athletes braving these cold conditions with the snow and the freezing fog, but there's a little bit of a wind element. But at the same time, with the pace that these guys are running, there's going to be some wind of their own just pushing them through this national championship course.
Those names still populating. Here's the gator pulls off the main part of the course and will reset itself to pick up the leaders in just about 20 seconds from now. You can see that group staying well connected in the early going as they get into and around this race course. You know, this is another example of a purpose-built cross-country course built here in Shelbyville, Indiana, Blue River cross-country course. There are so many of these types of courses now being built all over the country. We had the NCAA championships at Gans Creek this year in Missouri. They're building a beautiful new cross-country course out in Spokane that, when combined with their indoor facility, the Podium, has really made Spokane emerge as a destination for the sport in multiple months of the years. And I think this is all part of the infrastructure needed to continue to keep this as vibrant a sport as we can down to the grassroots level.
Absolutely, and I think what you're able to find now, like, there has been a community involvement and community connection, and what's beautiful about this is the investment that these locations are making to develop those types of relationships and growth for these young athletes and the families involved and also the community involved. You know, it's one thing to be a part of a club, but it's also another thing to be recognized within the city to have facilities like the Podium there in Spokane or this beautiful cross-country course today called the Blue River, but we might call it the White River with all the snow here today. But these are designed courses and designed locations to bring community together, and I think that's really seen here today as a hat comes off and the competitors begin to heat up here.
That's Carter Hammond in the white, who is the early leader here. They're going to make the turn, and I think we're going to get to a first kilometer split in short order, and we do have Eli Hernandez from Mount Diablo Heat up among the leaders, Eli Reed, the aforementioned Hammond, Samuel Radtke, Lucas Fouts, Lucas Durheimer, James Nielsen, Cody Lamb, Everett Brayton, and Johan Gonzalez. That's your top 10. You see them there, but, you know, 16 plus within a second and a half of the leaders here. A good, healthy lead group of runners through the first kilometer of the boys 13 and 14-year-olds. And David, you mentioned, you know, community support for these venues, and it sprinkles out. There's a radiating effect of these events being able to be hosted in places like Shelbyville. You know, they're engaging local merchants, they're engaging local hoteliers. It becomes sort of like an economic development engine to be able to have a facility like this or an indoor track facility and run these programs all year round. I'm sure one of the favored nation hotels in the attraction of coming here into Shelbyville, any one of them that turns their pool today into a hot tub temperature pool is going to be the most popular place to be the rest of the day.
Certainly, and that's the great thing about this course is, you know, a lot of these athletes, you know, I can't tell you, Paul, what place I finished in every single race that I ran in, but when someone makes mention of, the course there in Boise, Idaho, I remember the memories with my family and my friends there, and I think that's what's so great about these community connection points in a course like this is, yeah, these places and these finishes are very important, but there's overall a sense of nostalgic memory that these athletes are going to be able to build from today. They're going to think, wow, I raced really hard, but at the same time, they're like, man, those conditions were completely wild. And these are going to be ingrained memories for them in the sport and in their life. So it's just exciting to see, especially with how many athletes throughout all of today have just been giving it their all.
That's James Nielsen with the lead, though Eli Hernandez, I believe, in the white hat, running there close to him in second position. Nielsen from the North Bay Track Club, as we've got 5 minutes elapsed on the clock. Still a large group from front to back here in this boys race, but that lead group still pushing the pace as they come now within close proximity to the now rows deep of crowd that probably includes some who competed here earlier in the day, now in much warmer clothes and conditions for the last few races of the day. But at almost 6 minutes elapsed, it's another kind of race that's setting itself up for some fun racing towards the finish line, as we've seen a few more races today that were sort of solo efforts. This one got, at least a dozen boys in that lead pack right now.
A dozen boys in that lead pack, and we saw it earlier today, one of those boys races separated by 0.2 with Stepanoff winning that race. And so I expect really close finishes throughout the rest of the day as these athletes are now more developed and experienced, that they can measure themselves a little better. It's all about getting out and getting a great start, but these athletes have all had races where they've had great finishes, and they've all earned their spot to be here at the national championships, and this is a national caliber race. So these athletes are experienced. They're a little bit more seasoned veterans. A lot of these athletes have been with their clubs or their programs for years and years. So this is, again, a celebration of all those years that they've had with their clubs and programs, and just a good honor for them to be able to compete. But we should be coming up on 2K here shortly, and still, like you said, a dozen runners trying to take this lead, and we might see one here now.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a press in these last few strides for the leaders at the front. And we'll come up here shortly to that 2K split. It is now populating with Nielsen and Samuel Radtke, as Radtke in the blue running in that chase mode just ahead of Eli Hernandez, Lucas Durheimer, and Lucas Fouts. That's your top five. You can see that spread now. It's almost 2.5 seconds between first and 11th position, as it's kind of a game of attrition right now with the snow continuing to fall. Maybe a little bit lighter than it's been in a couple of the previous hours, but still the accumulations happening here, expected to have as many as 6 inches of snow on the ground by the end of the day, and the temperatures will continue to fall into brutal conditions. A little bit of a slip up there by Radtke. I don't know if it was Hernandez coming up on the back of them, but they're both now running safely, and that's something we haven't seen much today, David, is, when people are looking for places to run, they could make a quick decision to find a different place to put a foot down, and that could be in harm's way for somebody up in front, as we've all experienced being clipped from behind a few times in our running careers.
And when we think about these packs being a little bit tighter, something to recognize is this is our largest race of the day so far, with 379 runners going through that first kilometer. So those packs are going to be a little bit tighter. The competitiveness is going to be a little bit more knitted in within each of the athletes. And so, yeah, it's all about finding your footing and finding your space, which as more athletes get to the start line and as more athletes are hanging on through 2K, it's going to be more and more important to find that right footing for you.
Lucas Fouts is the leader now in the sunglasses, sporting no headwear, which seems to be the fashion statement of everybody else in the race that's chasing him down at this point in the course. Now coming up on 9 minutes elapsed, and again, a 4K distance for these boys at the ages of 13 and 14 years old. Fouts, one of those in this race who is a 13-year-old, doing battle with a host of others who all seem, with the exception of Lucas Durheimer from Eagle Wings Track, all in the 14-year-old age bracket. But that is the opportunity that affords him right now as he tries to hold a lead over Eli Fernandez and Radtke. Radtke now in third, but now starting to run a little bit more single file here, David, as the pace, I think, continues to quicken, and the pace that people can't handle starting to spit people out of the back.
Yeah, and I think those sunglasses honestly are a pretty good, not only just a fashion statement, but, you know, a lot of these athletes have been bringing their hands up and kind of breaking their rhythm a little bit to clear some snow off their eyelashes. But those sunglasses might just be that extra windshield that he can have to just focus on his footing ahead, focus on all his line of sight. So there is a separation now with 3 athletes, but there's still 6 close in contention that I don't expect this to be a runaway like some of the previous races.
At the 10-minute mark, Fouts is still the leader. Hernandez, Radtke trying to stay in close proximity. The Gator moves to that, again, a couple of these really tight turns as they all come through. And as it happened last time, looks like that would be the point at which we'd have maybe a 3K split. We're only getting splits at 1 and 2 kilometers, so getting into the closing stages of this race now with the boys 13 and 14-year-old division still to be adjudicated, and I don't think this is necessarily any person's race yet. If you start to see a lot of movement behind the leader, Fouts, as everyone trying to find positioning here. Now you see Eli Hernandez taking that straight line, kind of running the tangents on the far left of your screen, but everyone trying to find their own space to run, and it looks like Hernandez really trying to put in a little bit of pace right now.
And I really like his line, too, on that inside. You know, now he's able to kind of move up onto the shoulder, if not into the lead, and he's just riding out as tight as he can. And if I'm not mistaken, that very well could be some of those tire tracks that are getting put down by the lead Gator. And so, there, like you said earlier, like finding your footing is incredibly important, and there's not much room left to run. So having that footing, having that separation and vision is very good. And now 2 of them have really emerged ahead of the rest of the group.
Yeah, that's Samuel Radtke now who has taken the lead. So kind of game on, challenge accepted after Hernandez pushed it. And you can see him take a look around, and he's coming up right alongside the Gator now as the Gator tries to get back into focus, and Radtke puts the focus on this final sprint to the finish inside, I think, 500 meters now. And look at what's changed here in the last minute or so of racing as Radtke found an extra gear, and Hernandez has just not been able to react to it.
That had to have been rehearsed. He came around that corner, and I'm sure that was part of his conversation with Radtke, just making a massive move. He looked over his shoulder on that turn and then just turned on the jets and has added some daylight between him and the rest of the field with now under a quarter mile to go.
You can see Fouts back there in third, leading that group from behind, but Hernandez, the one closer to Radtke, but running out of real estate here with just 300 to go. Radtke takes another look over his shoulder. Now we go to the camera at the finish line as they've got these few undulations in the final couple of 100 meters, but a race that was very competitive through about 3,400 meters, and that's where Eli Hernandez turned on the jets, but Samuel Radtke reacted to that move. He put some gas on the speed engine and has found his way to the front of the pack. He has the line in sight. And Samuel Radtke is going to be the 2025 USATF Junior Olympic Cross Country Champion in the boys 13 and 14-year-old division as he holds off the field in impressive fashion, 13:12.7. And now this very competitive race behind him for podium honors. And I think Hernandez is going to get their second, and Fouts gets their third, just ahead of Kyle Peterson and Bentley Lorenz, as that is your top 5. And a great battle there at the end as that peloton of runners still coming through with about 400 meters to go. That'll decide the team race here, but a very good run. And that 12-second win for Radtke wasn't something I was expecting about a kilometer ago.
And that 5th place finish and dive for Bentley Lawrence is important. You know, I'm not sure if he has a full competitive team there, but fighting for every position. He might not have gotten the win, but he had to dive across the line, Thankfully, he had a bit of a soft landing, as you can see, even with these footsteps, a few inches of snow kicking up with each stride. So great effort by the whole group, but really strong effort there with Bentley Lawrence taking a dive there at the end to try to grab 5th place.
So we keep an eye on the singlets here as they come through to get the 5 scored low sticks for their respective teams. Palatine Pack was the leader through most of the way, and they've now unofficially got their first 5 across. We'll await the others to do so as well in the scoring in real time. Fisher's Fire has now come through with their 5 runners, and they would be